You think you know these places. But when the lights go out, they remember things that people forget. I used to work at a Costco in Arizona back in 2018. If you've ever been inside one after closing, you know it feels completely different once the doors lock. The place is massive, silent, the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own heartbeat. The fluorescent lights hum louder than they should. Every little sound, a cartwheel, a distant beep, echoes like you're inside a hollow metal box. I worked night shifts, restocking freezers and cleaning before the morning rush. There were only 6 of us on staff that night. I remember checking the time on my phone, 10:27 p.m. That's when I noticed it. A small footprint, pressed into the frost just outside the freezer aisle. It looked like a kid's shoe, too small to be any of my coworkers. I laughed a little to myself, figuring some kid must have run through before we closed. But then I heard it. A soft giggle coming from the next aisle over. At first, I thought one of my coworkers was joking around. So I called out, "Hey, who's there?" No answer. Just the low hum of the freezers. I stepped around the corner. Nothing. But right in the middle of the tile floor was a single chicken nugget, perfectly placed. Then another, a few feet ahead. And another. A little breadcrumb trail of frozen food leading toward the back storage doors. I followed them, my shoes squeaking on the cold tile. They stopped right at the walk-in freezer. The door was cracked open just slightly. It's not supposed to do that. It has an automatic seal. Cold air rolled out across the floor. I could see my breath. And on the inside of the metal wall, written through the thin layer of frost, were 2 words. "Still hungry?" I froze. My brain tried to make sense of it. Maybe someone wrote it earlier, but it looked fresh. The frost was still wet where the letters had been traced. I slammed the door shut and backed away, heart pounding. I ran to find my supervisor, Maria. When I told her what happened, she frowned and said, "That's not funny. We don't joke about that freezer." That confused me even more. She grabbed her keys and walked me back to check it. When she opened the door, the writing was gone. Nothing there but frost and boxes of frozen meat. She looked at me and said quietly, "You're not the first person to see something in here." Later that night, after the others left, I decided to check the security cameras myself. The monitor flickered to life, the feed grainy and blue. At 10:31 p.m., motion sensors in the freezer aisle activated. The screen showed a small figure walking barefoot down the middle of the aisle. You could see its reflection on the floor, a child-sized shape. But where its face should have been, there was static, just white fuzz like an old TV channel. The figure walked right up to the freezer door, the same one I found open, and then vanished, like someone hit off on the camera. The motion detector stopped. Everything went back to normal. I didn't sleep much that night. The next day, I told one of the older employees, Don. He went pale and said, "You don't know about the freezer kid, do you?" Apparently, 10 years earlier, during a power outage, a family had gotten trapped in that same freezer. The parents and 2 kids were rescued when the backup generator kicked in. But their youngest, a boy, maybe 6 years old, was found hours later, already gone. They said the door jammed because of the ice buildup. Corporate covered it up fast. New freezer, new safety systems. But employees still complained about the sensor lights flickering at random and hearing laughter in the aisles. I tried to laugh it off. Told myself it was just my imagination. But something about that night kept gnawing at me. A week later, during another late shift, I was assigned freezer duty again. Around 11 p.m., I noticed the air felt colder than usual. The lights dimmed for just a second. And then, faintly, through the humming and fans, I heard that same laugh, this time closer. Right behind me, I turned fast, shining my flashlight down the aisle. Nothing there, but on the floor, clear as day, were 2 wet footprints, small, bare, leading toward the freezer door. I didn't follow them. I went straight to the break room, grabbed my stuff, and clocked out. The next morning, Maria called. She said the night shift cleaner found something strange. A Costco employee vest folded neatly on top of the freezer unit, But the name tag wasn't one of ours. It said D. Harland, associate since 2004. That made no sense. Our entire team was hired after 2015. When I looked through old files, there was a Daniel Harland. He'd worked night stock and quit a few months after the freezer incident. No forwarding address, no record of him after that. A few nights later, I went in early for my shift. The store was quiet, empty. The freezers were humming, steady and low. I stopped for a second, staring at the reflection in the glass doors. Rows of products, white light, nothing unusual. Then I saw it, a faint shape standing between the aisles. Tall, thin, facing away from me. A yellow safety vest glowing faintly in the reflection. I spun around, the aisle was empty. I looked back at the glass, heart racing. The reflection was still there. Only this time the figure was closer, just behind me. The lights flickered, and in that split second of darkness I heard a whisper. A voice small and cold saying, "Still hungry?" I quit that job the next morning. No one believed me when I told them what I saw, but every so often I still get texts from my old co-workers. They'll send pictures of footprints in the freezer frost, or boxes stacked in strange patterns spelling out letters. I used to work the night shift at a Toys R Us in California back in 2012. Most people think of that place as bright, colorful, and full of laughter. But after closing, when the lights dim and the air conditioning shuts off, it turns into something completely different. The aisles stretch on forever. The shadows from the shelves look wrong. And the toys, they don't sound so friendly anymore. That night I was working inventory alone. Everyone else had clocked out around 10. The store was silent except for the occasional creak of plastic packaging settling in. I was scanning barcodes in the doll section when I heard it. A faint click, like a button being pressed. Then a voice, robotic but cheerful. "Let's play again." I turned around. Every talking doll on the shelf was dark. Batteries pulled out, speakers dead. I knew, because I was the one who'd removed them earlier for safety checks. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was leftover charge or a power flicker. But then I noticed one of the dolls had turned its head slightly. It wasn't facing forward anymore. Its plastic smile pointed right at me. I blinked, looked again, it hadn't moved. Or maybe I just didn't see it happen. Around 11:30, I decided to finish up in the back warehouse. That's when I heard something roll behind me. A toy shopping cart, one of those tiny ones kids use, was sitting in the middle of the floor. It wasn't there 30 seconds earlier. I pushed it aside, trying to laugh it off. But as I turned to leave, it rolled again, right back toward me. No slope, no breeze, just that slow, steady wheel sound echoing through the store. By midnight, I'd had enough. I went to the break room, grabbed my keys, and texted my manager. "Inventory's done." Locking up early, I started toward the front doors. But the motion sensors along the main aisle flicked the lights back on, one by one, like something was walking parallel to me, just out of sight. I stopped walking. The lights kept turning on, all the way down to the far end by the toy aisle, then silence. I pulled out my phone to record it, thinking maybe I'd show it later. But right then, one of the display toys, a little drum set, started playing on its own. No batteries, no sound chip. Just bam, 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 a slow rhythm echoing across the empty floor. I whispered, "Who's there?" Something answered. Not a word, just a low, childish giggle. When I told my manager the next day, she gave me this look, like she'd heard it all before. She said quietly, "Don't mess around in aisle 7 after midnight." I asked why. She hesitated, then said, "Years ago, a little boy went missing here. They found him the next morning behind that aisle. He'd crawled into one of the storage racks and got stuck. By the time anyone heard him, it was too late. Corporate called it an accident. They remodeled part of the store and blocked off that rack completely. But she said some nights the toys near there still turn on by themselves." 2 weeks later, I was scheduled for another closing shift. I didn't want to go near aisle 7, but curiosity got the better of me. Around 12:15 a.m., I took my flashlight and walked over. The shelves were packed with baby dolls, dozens of them. Their eyes glimmered in the dim light, catching reflections from the emergency signs. Then I noticed something strange. One doll, an older model we hadn't sold in years, was sitting on the floor facing the wall. I picked it up. It was cold, heavier than the others. Its tag read "My Buddy," a discontinued toy from the 90s. As I held it, its eyes flicked open, and in this soft, static voice it said, "You found me." I dropped it immediately. It hit the ground with a hollow thud. All the other dolls followed, one by one sliding off the shelves, like invisible hands were pushing them. The next thing I remember is running through aisles of toys, laughing, talking, singing, voices overlapping in distorted mechanical tones. At the checkout counter, every register light turned on at once. Receipts started printing, blank paper spooling out onto the floor. And in between the static of the overhead speakers, I could hear something breathing. Slow, wet, like someone standing right behind the intercom mic. I shouted, "Stop it! This isn't funny!" And then, a single voice came through the speakers, high-pitched and trembling. "Play with me, please." I sprinted for the exit doors, but the automatic locks were engaged. They wouldn't open until 6 a.m. That's when the lights cut out. Total darkness. In the silence, plastic feet scuttled across the tile. Something brushed past my ankle, small, cold, fast. I turned my flashlight back on and saw hundreds of toy eyes staring at me from the shelves. And right in the center aisle stood that same My Buddy doll, except now its face was different. The smile had melted into a blank expression. And around its plastic neck hung a tiny employee name badge. It read, Evan Stock Crew. That was the boy's name from the old report. I backed away slowly. The doll tilted its head. And then in that same static whisper said, "Don't leave again." The air grew colder. I could see my breath. My flashlight flickered out. And then a hand, small and plastic, grabbed my wrist. I screamed, swung my arm, and ran until I hit the emergency exit. Alarm blaring, red lights flashing, I burst out into the parking lot. When I looked back through the glass, every doll on the shelves was facing the doors. All of them, watching. The police came after the alarm triggered. They found no one inside. But on the floor near aisle 7, they discovered the doll. Its voice box ripped out, batteries melted inside. They told me to take the rest of the week off. I never went back. A few months later, the store shut down for good. Corporate said it was financial issues. But locals still say at night, if you drive by and stop your car, you can see a faint glow from inside, and like those battery lights toys used to have. And sometimes, you can hear them. Tiny voices through the glass saying the same words over and over. Let's play again. 2 seconds of silence, faint wind, plug music fade. If you ever find yourself near an abandoned toy store, don't look through the windows, because some toys never stop waiting for their turn to play. I used to work as an evening janitor at Willow Elementary, a small public school in Oregon. It wasn't a bad job. Quiet, easy hours, steady pay. But what I remember most isn't the classrooms or the kids. It's the playground, that old metal jungle gym behind the school that creaked even when the wind was still. They tore it down last year, and part of me's glad they did. The first time I noticed something strange was a Tuesday in October 2019. I was finishing trash duty when I heard a swing moving. Not creaking from wind, moving. Steady back and forth, like someone was sitting on it. The yard lights were dim, half burned out. I stepped closer, mop bucket wheels rattling on the asphalt. No one there. But the swing kept going, rhythm perfect, as if pushed by invisible hands. I grabbed it to stop it, and the chains were warm. That shouldn't happen in 45-degree weather. A week later, the night security alarm tripped. Motion detected near the playground. When I checked the feed, the camera glitched, showing faint shapes on the slide. 3 figures, small, like kids sitting shoulder to shoulder, then static, and the timestamp froze at 12:07 a.m., exactly the same minute I'd first noticed the swing moving the week before. I told the vice principal. She looked tired, like she'd heard it before. Finally, she said, "There was an accident here in '96, old field trip bus overturned by the woods. A few of our students didn't make it back." She sighed. "Sometimes the motion lights trigger near that time of year. Try not to dwell on it." Easy for her to say. She wasn't the one mopping alone at midnight. 2 nights later, I heard children whispering from outside the gym doors, laughing softly. The sound came closer, like someone running circles around the building. When I looked through the glass, the yard was empty, except for footprints in the sand pit. Small ones barefoot, leading from the swings toward the slide, and then stopping mid-track halfway through. No drag marks, just gone. That night I went home and dreamed of the playground, except everything was wrong. The swings moved too slow, like underwater, and behind the fence I saw silhouettes of kids, all facing me. When I woke up, I could still hear the creaking chains echoing in my ears. By November, the nights got colder. One Friday, I stayed late for a teacher event. Around 10:30 p.m., I went outside to lock the gate. As I crossed the blacktop, I heard that same metallic clink, clink, clink. The merry-go-round. It was spinning. I froze. No wind, no kids, just that old rusted circle turning smooth as new. Then a small voice. "Push faster." I dropped my keys. When I bent to grab them, I noticed something glinting near the base. A bracelet. Plastic beads, faded letters that spelled Emma. We'd had a memorial plaque inside the school for an Emma Lawson, one of the kids from that bus. The next Monday, I showed the bracelet to the principal. He looked uneasy, said, "That area's off limits after dark. Don't go near it again." He took the bracelet and locked it in his desk. That same night, I passed his office and saw the drawer open. The bracelet was gone. A few nights later, I was mopping the cafeteria when every hallway light flickered, out except the ones leading to the playground doors. My radio hissed a burst of static, then a voice. Faint, childish, overlapping. "Come outside." I told myself it was interference from the security channel, but my hand was shaking. I stepped outside anyway. Cold air, fog rolling off the grass. The playground stood perfectly still, except the slide. Something small sat at the top, shadow black against the mist. I raised my flashlight, and it vanished. Just gone. But when I turned to leave, the beam caught something on the slide's metal. Letters scraped in with small fingernails. "Don't let him out." After that, things got worse. Locks jammed. Alarm codes changed on their own. The sound of laughter followed me from room to room. One night, as I was cleaning the hallway near the art room, I saw muddy footprints appear across the tiles, one after another, leading toward the gym. I followed them, recording on my phone. When I reached the gym doors, they swung open on their own. Inside, the basketballs rolled slowly from the racks and stopped in a perfect line facing me. And hanging from the scoreboard cable was that same bracelet, only now the beads spelled help. I ran to the office to call 911. The phone lines were dead, but the security monitors were all flashing the same feed. Every camera aimed at the playground. The slide, the swings, the merry-go-round, all moving at once, and standing between them, barely visible in the fog, was something taller. Thin, too long to be human, its limbs bending wrong, its head bowed low. The screen froze. Then the speakers crackled with a voice, not a child's this time, but deeper, dragging each word. "She opened the gate." I grabbed my coat and bolted outside. The chain on the playground fence hung loose, snapped clean through. In the sand pit, I saw small footprints circling something larger. Right in the center, a perfect handprint pressed into the dirt, each finger at least twice the length of mine. Then, a whisper by my ear. "Run!" I did. The police arrived 15 minutes later. They found the gate wide open and my mop bucket tipped over near the swings. No sign of anyone else. When they reviewed the security footage, all the outdoor cameras were blank. From 11:59 to 12:07 a.m., exactly 8 minutes. That same time again, I quit the next morning. Couldn't even finish my last shift. But a week later, curiosity pulled me back. I parked across the street at midnight, engine off, just watching the fenced-off lot. At 12:07 exactly, one swing began to move. Slow, steady. Then 2 more joined. And just for a second, I saw 3 small shapes sitting there. Behind them, the fog shifted, and something taller stepped out, towering over the slide. Its arm reached forward, almost touching the swings, until all 3 vanished, leaving the seats twisting in the wind. They demolished the playground a month later, built a new one on the opposite side of the campus. But some nights, the janitors still say their mops move by themselves near the old field doors, leaving streaks that look like tiny handprints. And if you drive by around 12:07 a.m., you can still hear chains creaking in the dark, as though someone's still out there, waiting for the next one to push faster. Some playgrounds were never meant to be rebuilt, because not everything that laughs in the dark is alive anymore.